Hello, this is Penny Brown with IMTS TV in brief, and we're on site at MC2, the MTConnect conference in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm here with Steve Fritzinger, a business development manager with NetApp, who is also one of our great keynote speakers here at MC2. How are you today, Steve?
Good, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So I just saw your presentation and I was fascinated. Darwin, Moore, and Metcalfe. Can you explain to us a little bit about what that meant and how it ties into manufacturing?
Sure. The basic theme of my talk was how competition and technology are driving together to change how we manufacture things and to change it at a pace that the industry might not necessarily be used to. So Darwin is obvious with natural selection, evolution, and competition. Moore and Metcalfe came from Gordon Moore of Intel, who was one of the founders of the microprocessor, and the speed at which microprocessors are getting faster, enabling us to solve different problems like now monitoring our shop floors in real time so that we can tell in 300 milliseconds rather than in 3 hours that there's a problem. And then Bob Metcalfe, who studied network effects in technology and how having more people cluster around one standard makes that standard or that interconnect or that network more valuable, literally at an exponential rate.
So tying it back to standards, obviously we're here for MTConnect. So how does that tie into all of this change and adaptation?
One of the things that MTConnect brings to the table is the ability to monitor the shop floor in real time, so you know what is going on second by second. And that enables people to make a lot of changes in how they work operationally. Instead of it being an art form trying to keep the machines running well, you can tell as soon as something goes out of spec, out of alignment, or a cutting head gets dull, that it's actually happening and you can fix it now. And that lets people get more efficient on the shop floor, and it also lets them maintain that efficiency as they standardize, automate, and monitor their processes.
Now, you had also touched on some of the bigger themes of manufacturing and specific 3D printing and kind of some smart force development. What do you think is going to be next in terms of the workforce for manufacturing?
What I talked about during the keynote, especially around 3D, is that at least today, 3D isn't having a big impact on high volume manufacturing. It's really being successful in low volume, customized, niche kind of areas like medical applications and people tinkering around with it. But I think that ability to tinker is going to be where the big impact really is. It's going to drive a lot of new people into design, into coming up with new ideas for things that should be manufactured and new types of products, because 3D removes a lot of the barriers to entry that inventors had faced in the past. And as those barriers fall, an entire new generation of people are going to come in, and they're going to expect manufacturing shops to be able to make the stuff that they've figured out how to prototype with 3D.
So you also touched on the theme of kind of getting kids more interested in manufacturing as opposed to making them all feel like they have to go to a four-year school to earn a bachelor's degree. Why do you feel that's important?
Well, we see right now that there's an enormous bubble in the number of people who are getting bachelor's degrees and the amount of student loan debt that they're taking on. And some of these degrees might not be that useful in the economy. Whereas if you have someone who comes out of school, they know manufacturing, or they go to a 2-year trade school to learn hands-on manufacturing, there can be a lot of really good jobs right out of high school where you're not taking on tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of student loan debt, and you're not delaying the start of your career by 4 years. There's a myth that manufacturing is dying in the US, when in fact the US, dollar volume-wise, makes about a quarter of everything that gets made in the world. It's just we're doing it smarter, we're doing it with fewer people. The idea that you can just work on an assembly line, twisting a nut for 30 years and retire, that's gone. Those jobs are never coming back. But there's a new generation of manufacturing jobs that require a lot more intellect, a lot more thinking, and a lot more adaptability for the people who are running the shops and running the tools. And I think the faster kids, especially here in the Midwest, can get into that kind of a shop environment, the better off we're going to be long term.
So I understand you actually have a position with BBC as a commentator. So if people want to hear more about your insights on things, tell us about that.
I'm actually a freelance economics writer, and I am the regular economics commentator for a BBC podcast called Business Daily. It's on SiriusXM, it's on the BBC World Service, and of course you can download it on iTunes or whatever your favorite podcasting site is.
Thank you so much for your time, Steve. Wonderful insights today.
Great. Thank you, Penny.
Thanks for tuning in to IMTS TV in brief. We'll have plenty more interviews from MC2, the MTConnect conference, coming up soon. This has been Penny Brown with IMTS TV.